I never imagined that falling for someone could start with a punch in the gut. Literally. On the first day of fall semester, right as I thought I had mastered the art of blending into the background, he elbowed me accidentally or on purpose. I'd never know while reaching for a textbook on the top shelf of the library. He didn't apologize, didn't even glance my way, just turned and walked off like he owned the aisle. And I hated him instantly. It wasn't just his arrogance. It was the aura of someone who carried secrets like armor. And somewhere deep down, I knew I wanted to unravel them, though every sane part of me screamed not to. I'm Ethan Carter, a senior at Hawthorne University, majoring in English literature, obsessed with novels and coffee, living life cautiously. My world was neat, predictable, and painfully ordinary. That was until Alex Moretti entered it like a storm in designer sneakers. He was a transfer student, handsome in that effortless, dangerous way, the kind that makes everyone around him hold their breath without realizing it. His dark eyes flickered with secrets, and his presence seemed to bend the air in the lecture hall, drawing attention like a magnet. Our first interaction was a disaster, of course. During Professor Langley's American Romanticism lecture, Alex leaned over my shoulder to grab a pen I didn't know I'd lent to no one, his hand brushing mine. My heart did something embarrassing, something it had never done before. I yanked my hand back like it was on fire. He noticed, smirked, the kind of smirk that promised mischief and maybe trouble. "I'm not usually this invasive," he said casually, as if we were friends already. "Good to know," I muttered, sinking into my chair like a wounded animal. From that moment on, Alex became a fixture in my life, whether I liked it or not. He would sit near me in the cafeteria, in the library, sometimes even at the edge of my favorite coffee shop, pretending to read, though his eyes found mine constantly. I wanted to hate him. I really did. But there was something magnetic in his defiance, in the way he moved through the world like he was untouchable, unbothered by anyone's judgment. Weeks passed, and our relationship evolved or devolved depending on how you looked at it. I went from irritation to curiosity, from curiosity to frustration, and frustration to an infuriating awareness that I was completely drawn to him. He challenged me in ways I didn't know I needed. His sarcasm, his sharp intelligence, the way he never answered a question straight, it drove me insane. And yet, in fleeting moments, he'd soften. A quiet, almost imperceptible gentleness that made the walls around him crumble, just enough to let me peek through. I discovered he had scars. On his wrists, faint but telling, as if someone had tried to erase pieces of his past. That should have been enough to make me retreat, to step back and protect my heart. Instead, it made me want to reach closer. I didn't know what he had survived, but I wanted to understand it, to be part of it, even if it meant being burned. Our first real conversation happened by accident. Or maybe it wasn't an accident at all. It was raining, heavy and insistent. The kind of autumn storm that turns city streets into mirrors reflecting every passing headlight. I had forgotten my umbrella and was cursing myself under my breath when I saw him leaning against the library entrance, smirking despite the drizzle soaking his dark hoodie. "You look like you're about to drown," he said, voice teasing but not unkind. "I'm fine," I snapped, though my teeth were chattering. He shook his head, sighed dramatically, and without asking, held out his umbrella. "You'll ruin your new coat." I wanted to refuse. Really, I did. But there was something in the way he held that umbrella, tilted just so, shielding only me. It was intimate without words, a gesture that left me breathless in the middle of a crowded, rainy campus. We walked together in silence, the sound of rain and our footsteps filling the space between us. For the first time, I noticed the way his eyes seemed to be measuring me, not judging but calculating. There was depth there, a storm behind the calm, and I sensed that he was protecting something, himself or maybe someone else, from being hurt. "Why are you always so distant?" I asked suddenly, unable to stop myself. He looked at me like I had asked the wrong question. "Maybe because the world is too loud, and I've learned the hard way that people can't be trusted." I wanted to argue, to tell him that trust could be built, that not everyone would betray him. But the words stuck in my throat. There was pain in his gaze, the kind that whispers of nights spent alone, of shadows that refuse to leave. That was the first crack in the wall between us. Over the next few weeks, our interactions became a dance of push and pull. I teased him mercilessly in class. He shot back with sly remarks that left the entire lecture hall snickering. And yet, when no one was watching, our conversations lingered longer than they should. He would brush my hand accidentally on purpose, and I would burn from the heat of it. We laughed, argued, and in quiet corners of the campus, shared stories that made the world outside disappear for just a moment. I started noticing things, the subtle twitch of his lips when he was lying, the way he avoided looking at certain doors, the nervous tapping of his fingers on surfaces whenever someone mentioned family. Each observation was a puzzle piece, and I was desperate to complete the picture. One night, I found myself at the library well past closing hours. The campus was silent, the only light coming from the lampposts lining the pathways. And there he was, sitting in our usual spot under the maple tree, head buried in a book. I approached quietly, heart hammering, and sat beside him without a word. "You shouldn't be here alone," I said softly. "I like the quiet," he replied without looking up. I wanted to shake him, to demand he tell me what haunted him so deeply, but the words never came. Instead, I leaned back, letting the silence envelop us. In that moment, there was no teasing, no sarcasm, no walls, just two people sitting under a tree, the golden light of the lamppost casting long shadows, and a connection so fragile yet undeniable. It was the calm before the storm. I didn't know it yet, but the past he carried wasn't just scars and pain. It was something that could destroy us if we weren't careful. Something dangerous. Something that had the power to drown both of us, not just metaphorically, but in ways I couldn't yet imagine. And still, despite all the warnings, I couldn't turn away. The week after that rainy evening, I found myself thinking about Alex more than I cared to admit. I'd catch myself staring at the empty chair across from me in the library, imagining him sliding into it with that infuriating smirk, and my chest would tighten in anticipation. It was during a literature seminar that the first real crack in his composure appeared. Professor Langley was lecturing on Whitman, and I was scribbling notes when Alex leaned over and whispered, "You really think poetry can fix everything?" I blinked at him. "What do you mean?" He smirked again, though there was a flicker of seriousness in his eyes I couldn't ignore. "Some people use it to cover their scars. But words don't erase everything." His words hit me harder than a punch. I wanted to probe, to ask him about the scars he'd been so careful to hide, but I hesitated. There was a wall there, one I hadn't yet learned how to climb. And then the bell rang, scattering the class, and he was gone, leaving me with the echo of his voice in my head. Later that afternoon, I found him sitting under the maple tree again, the one where we had shared that quiet moment during the rain. He was flipping through a notebook, his brows furrowed, lips pressed into a thin line. I approached cautiously, heart pounding. "You're avoiding people again," I said softly. He looked up, startled, then quickly masked it with a shrug. "I'm fine," he said, too quickly, too sharply. I didn't push, not yet. Instead, I sat down beside him, letting the silence stretch comfortably between us. Something about him made the air feel heavier, as if the world beyond the campus didn't exist. I noticed the faint scars on his wrist again, the ones that seemed to pulse with memory. I reached out, almost instinctively, and brushed a strand of hair from his forehead. Alex froze, eyes wide, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he let out a breath I hadn't realized he'd been holding. That small gesture, that fleeting trust, sent a jolt through me I couldn't describe. "Do you ever feel like you're carrying something too heavy for anyone to understand?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer immediately. For a moment, he stared at his hands, tracing the faint lines of the scars with his fingers. Then he met my gaze, and for the first time, the walls seemed to falter. "Maybe," he admitted finally, voice low and raw, "but some things aren't meant to be shared." The honesty in his words, the vulnerability he allowed me to glimpse, was intoxicating. I wanted to tell him it was okay, that I could bear it, but I didn't. I didn't want to scare him away, didn't want to push too hard. Instead, I stayed silent, offering only my presence. Over the next few days, our connection deepened in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. Shared glances in class, lingering touches when passing in the hallway, and quiet conversations that stretched into the night. There was a rhythm to it, a dangerous dance that neither of us fully acknowledged, but both of us felt. One evening, I found him at the campus coffee shop, sitting alone at a corner table with a notebook open in front of him. I hesitated at the door, unsure if I should intrude, but something compelled me forward. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, trying for casual, though my heart betrayed me with a rapid drumbeat. He looked up, a flicker of surprise crossing his face before it settled into a soft smile. "I was wondering when you'd show up," he said, gesturing to the empty chair. We sat together, side by side, the space between us charged with unspoken tension. I watched him scribble furiously, the pen moving with purpose, and I wondered what thoughts he was trying to capture. Finally, he set the pen down and leaned back, eyes meeting mine. "Why do you care so much about me?" he asked suddenly, voice quiet but intense. The question hit me like a bullet. I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came. How could I explain that I didn't care about anyone the way I cared about him? That something about him, his scars, his secrets, his defiance drew me in like a magnet I couldn't resist? "I don't know," I admitted finally, truth spilling out despite my caution. "I just do." He studied me for a long moment, and then, unexpectedly, he reached across the table and brushed his fingers against mine. The contact was brief, but it sent a shock through my entire body. His eyes held mine, searching, questioning, and for a moment, the world shrank down to just the two of us, caught in a fragile bubble of proximity and longing. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed every detail of our interaction, every brush of his fingers, every flicker of vulnerability in his gaze. I realized I was falling for him, and the thought terrified me. I had no idea what his past entailed, what shadows followed him, but I couldn't stay away. Then came the day that changed everything. It was late afternoon, the sky painted in shades of amber and rose, when I noticed a figure watching Alex from across the campus quad. There was something familiar about the way the person moved, something tense, calculated. I tried to brush it off, but my instincts screamed danger. I approached Alex cautiously. "There's someone looking for you," I said, voice low. He glanced up, a flash of panic crossing his features before he masked it with indifference. "It's nothing," he said quickly, but I could see the lie in his eyes. "Alex, seriously?" I pressed, gripping his arm gently. "I think it's serious. I can feel it." He hesitated, then let out a long sigh, the kind that seemed to carry years of exhaustion. "You weren't supposed to see this," he admitted finally. I have a past, a dangerous past, and it's not just anyone close to me could get hurt." My heart pounded. "What kind of past?" He looked away, jaw tight, hands fidgeting. I can't tell you everything yet. Not until I'm sure it's safe." But the intensity in his eyes, the tremor in his voice, left no doubt that it was serious. My fear collided with something stronger, an undeniable pull toward him, toward whatever danger awaited us. That night, I lay in my dorm room, restless, imagining scenarios I didn't want to face. My mind kept circling back to Alex, to the vulnerability he'd allowed me to glimpse, to the promise of intimacy wrapped in peril. I realized then that loving him wasn't just an emotional risk, it was a literal one. Despite the fear, I knew I couldn't walk away. There was something about him that called to me, a silent plea for understanding, for connection, for someone willing to stand by him even when the shadows threatened to swallow him whole. The next few days brought tension that neither of us could ignore. He was distant in class, yet somehow close when no one was watching. I noticed the way he flinched at sudden noises, the way his eyes darted to exits, the subtle signs of a person always anticipating danger. And through it all, I stayed by his side, sometimes just silently, sometimes daring to brush a hand against his. Each contact a small act of rebellion against the fear he carried. One evening, He invited me to his apartment, an old loft on the edge of the city. Walls lined with books and faint traces of art that spoke of a life he had tried to hide. I hesitated, heart hammering with anticipation and fear, but curiosity and longing won. Inside, he seemed different, less guarded, more human. He poured 2 glasses of wine and sat across from me, the flickering candlelight casting shadows that danced on the walls. "I should warn you," he said finally, voice low. "This isn't going to be easy. My life, my past, it's complicated, dangerous, and I don't want to drag you into it." I reached across the small table, brushing my hand against his. "I don't care about easy," I said, eyes locking with his. "I care about you." For a moment, time seemed to suspend. The city noises faded, the room shrank to just the 2 of us, and the vulnerability in his gaze mirrored the longing in mine. Then, slowly, tentatively, he leaned forward, closing the distance. Our lips met in a soft, uncertain kiss, fragile yet electric, and for the first time, I felt the weight of the walls between us crumble completely. That night marked the beginning of something undeniable. We navigated the delicate balance between fear and desire, secrecy and trust, danger and intimacy. Each day brought new challenges, hints of the past that Alex fought to keep buried, and yet, our connection deepened. We laughed, argued, and clung to moments of tenderness like lifelines in a world that threatened to pull him back into darkness. Even as the threat of his past loomed over us, I discovered the depth of his heart, the loyalty, the vulnerability, the quiet courage that belied the dangerous exterior. And in return, he began to trust me, slowly, painfully, but surely, allowing me glimpses into the shadows that had defined him. We were 2 flawed souls, drawn together by curiosity, fear, and undeniable attraction. Learning that love isn't just about joy, it's about standing together in the storm, facing the darkness, and daring to hope for light. The following week, unease settled over the campus like a heavy fog. I noticed Alex's eyes constantly scanning corridors, his body taut, as if expecting trouble at every corner. The air between us was tense, charged with a mixture of longing and fear. I tried to ignore it, tried to focus on normal things, lectures, homework, but he occupied my thoughts entirely. One evening, I found him sitting alone on the rooftop of the student center, the city lights sprawling beneath us like a galaxy of distant stars. The wind tugged at his dark hair, and his hoodie flapped slightly, exposing a faint tattoo curling up his forearm. He looked different here, smaller somehow, the danger behind his eyes momentarily softened by the vulnerability of solitude. I climbed up carefully, my footsteps loud in the silence, and sat beside him. "You shouldn't be up here alone," I said, though my voice lacked conviction. "I like the view," he replied quietly, not looking at me. I studied him, the way his shoulders tensed, the subtle trembling of his fingers. "Alex, talk to me, please. I can handle it." He finally turned toward me, his eyes dark and stormy, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down. "I've made mistakes," he admitted, voice low, almost pained. "Bad ones. Dangerous ones. And some people, they don't forgive mistakes like mine." My stomach churned, and I reached out, letting my hand rest on his arm. "Whatever it is, we can face it together," I whispered. He laughed, bitter and hollow. "You have no idea what you're volunteering for." I did. Somehow I already did. Despite fear clawing at me, despite the shadows surrounding him, I felt that I couldn't let go. Not now. Not ever. That night, he finally shared fragments of the past he had guarded so fiercely. He spoke of a brother who had gotten mixed up with dangerous people, of nights spent hiding, of threats that lingered like ghosts. His words painted pictures of betrayal, danger, and survival, each story revealing the depth of his guarded nature. "I've done things I'm not proud of," he said, voice breaking. "Things that could ruin lives, mine and anyone foolish enough to get close." I gripped his hand, my own heart hammering. "Alex, look at me. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. You're not alone." For the first time, the wall completely fell. He leaned against me, resting his head on my shoulder, and I felt the tremors of his fear, the weight of his past, settling against me. It was intimate and terrifying all at once. Days turned into nights of whispered conversations and careful closeness. We discovered a rhythm. Stolen glances in crowded classrooms, shared lunches in quiet corners, hands brushing with intent and hesitation. The intimacy between us was intoxicating, the kind that made normal life fade into a blur of anticipation and vulnerability. But the danger wasn't gone. One afternoon, a car slowed outside the campus, a black SUV with tinted windows. Alex tensed immediately, his hand gripping mine instinctively as we walked to class. I could feel the tension radiating from him, the unspoken warning that his past had caught up. That night, he admitted the truth in fragments. "They're looking for me," he said, voice low, almost a whisper. "People from before. People who want to hurt me, or worse, anyone close to me." I swallowed hard, the gravity of his world sinking in. "We'll face it together," I said firmly, the words carrying a resolve I hadn't known I possessed. He looked at me then, really looked, and for a moment, I thought I saw hope flicker behind the storm in his eyes. "You're crazy," he muttered. But there was warmth there, too, a fragile acknowledgement of trust. The following days were a delicate dance of normalcy and preparation. We attended lectures, studied together, and held hands in public, though subtly. At night, we planned contingencies. Phone numbers memorized, escape routes mapped, signals for danger agreed upon. Our love had become a battleground, each tender moment underscored by the threat lurking outside our fragile bubble. One evening, we were walking through the campus park, autumn leaves crunching beneath our feet. Alex's hand found mine, fingers entwining naturally. He stopped under a large oak, turning to face me fully. "Ethan," he said softly, voice trembling, "I need you to promise me something. No matter what happens, don't let go. Not of me, not of us." I cupped his face in my hands, my own pulse racing. "I promise. I won't let go." He closed his eyes, leaning into my touch, and for a moment, we simply existed together, ignoring the world around us. That evening, for the first time, the fear that had shadowed our relationship felt distant, replaced by a fragile, aching hope. Then the past struck. It started with anonymous messages, emails that vanished as quickly as they appeared, warning him to leave town, to disappear, to vanish. Each one carried a weight that tightened around my chest. Alex tried to ignore them, but I could see the tension in his posture, the haunted glint in his eyes. One night, we returned to his loft to find signs of intrusion. Drawers slightly open, papers scattered, a faint scent of unfamiliar cologne. My heart raced, and I realized that the danger was no longer abstract. It was here, in our lives, in the spaces we called safe. Alex immediately moved to secure the apartment, checking locks, peeking out windows, every movement sharp and precise. He looked at me then, eyes dark, filled with the gravity of reality. "They know where I am," he said simply. "And now, so do you." I swallowed hard, fear and resolve intertwining. "I'm not leaving. We face this together." He hesitated, then nodded, the weight of trust passing silently between us. That night, we stayed close, planning, strategizing, and holding each other like shields against the storm. The tension escalated over the following weeks. Unfamiliar cars parked near his loft, shadows flitting across windows, messages hinting at knowledge of our routines. It was a constant, gnawing presence, a reminder that love, in our case, was inseparable from danger. Despite it, we continued to live in stolen moments of joy. We studied together, shared meals, laughed at inside jokes, and found fleeting hours of intimacy that reminded us why we fought to remain together. Every touch, every glance, every whispered word became a rebellion against the fear that threatened to overwhelm us. One night, Alex finally shared the full story. He had been involved in exposing illegal operations that had ensnared people he once trusted. The threats were retaliation was a target because he had dared to stand against powerful figures. The knowledge of this past, of the people who could hurt him or anyone near him, was terrifying, but it also explained the shadows in his eyes, the tension in his body, the constant vigilance he exhibited. I listened, heart hammering, and I realized that love for Alex was now inseparable from courage. Loving him meant stepping into danger willingly, embracing uncertainty, and trusting that our bond was stronger than fear. That night, as we lay together under the soft glow of his loft's single lamp, I felt the full weight of what it meant to love him. His scars, both visible and hidden, were not barriers, they were markers of survival, of resilience, of the depth of his heart. And as I traced them gently with my fingers, I whispered the truth that had become undeniable. I love you, Alex. All of you. And I'm not leaving. He held me close, his chest rising and falling with the same rapid rhythm as mine, and for the first time, I felt the walls between us dissolve completely. In the quiet of that apartment, amid fear, uncertainty, and the lingering shadows of his past, we found a fragile sanctuary in each other's arms. The following weeks became a blend of vigilance and closeness. Alex taught me how to navigate his world carefully, which streets to avoid, what signs to watch for, and how to recognize subtle threats. I absorbed it all, not out of obligation, but out of love and determination to protect what we had. We also discovered the deeper layers of intimacy, shared nights of vulnerability, whispered confessions, tentative kisses that grew into full expressions of trust. The danger surrounding Alex's past became a backdrop against which our love thrived, each obstacle forging a bond that was stronger, more resilient, and unbreakable. One evening, as we walked through the quiet campus under a sky painted with stars, Alex paused and looked at me. His expression was a mix of awe and fear, of hope and lingering uncertainty. "Do you ever think," he said quietly, "that love can really survive all this?" I took his hands in mine, feeling the warmth, the pulse, the living connection between us. "It's surviving right now," I said firmly. "Every day we choose each other is proof that it can." He smiled, a soft, genuine smile that lit up the shadows in his eyes, and for the first time, I felt the weight of the world lighten. Our love was a rebellion, a triumph, a defiance of the darkness that sought to consume him. And in that moment, walking hand in hand beneath the stars, I knew that together, we could face anything. The storm was far from over, but we were no longer separate in its fury. We were a team, bound by trust, courage, and a love that refused to be hidden. And as we stood there, in the quiet night, the city stretching endlessly around us, I realized that the most dangerous and beautiful journey of my life had only just begun. The days that followed were tense but filled with a strange, electric intimacy. Alex and I had learned to navigate his dangerous past together, balancing vigilance with the fragile joy of stolen moments. Every laugh, every brush of hands, every shared look was a victory against the shadows that sought to intrude. Love had become our rebellion. One crisp morning, as golden sunlight spilled over the campus, I spotted Alex waiting for me under the maple tree, the same one where our story had begun. His dark hoodie hung loosely, hands stuffed in pockets, eyes scanning the horizon before they met mine. When he smiled, even faintly, my chest tightened. That smile was rare, and it always felt like a promise. "Morning," I called softly, approaching him. "Morning," he replied, voice quiet, but there was warmth in it now, something lighter. We walked together to our first class, a comfortable silence settling between us. The world was waking around us, students hurrying to lectures, the leaves crunching underfoot. I realized, then, that these moments, mundane yet precious, were the ones I cherished most. Later that evening, we returned to his loft, our sanctuary amid chaos. The faint smell of coffee and books greeted me, familiar and comforting. He was sprawled across the couch, notebook open but abandoned, eyes tracing patterns on the ceiling. "You okay?" I asked, sitting beside him. He turned, expression softening. "Yeah," he said. "Better, I think. Because of you." I felt my heart swell. Those words, simple yet profound, carried the weight of trust, of gratitude, of love. I reached for his hand, fingers intertwining. "We're in this together, remember?" "Yes," he whispered, leaning into me, head resting on my shoulder. Together. The nights grew longer, filled with whispered conversations, shared dreams, and laughter that echoed through his loft. Our love flourished amid danger, each tender touch a defiance of the past that haunted him. I learned about his favorite books, the music that soothed him, the small joys he'd kept hidden. He discovered my quirks, my favorite coffee blends, my love for old movies. Together, we built a cocoon of intimacy, fragile yet unbreakable. But danger never truly disappeared. One night, a shadow lingered near the loft, a figure watching, waiting. Alex froze, alert and tense, eyes narrowing. I felt a cold thrill of fear, but also determination. Whatever came, we would face it as one. "Stay behind me," he whispered, voice steady but cautious. I nodded, heart racing. "I'm not leaving you." The figure approached, and Alex acted with calm precision, moving between us, protective and assertive. But as the stranger retreated, it became clear that the immediate threat had passed. For the first time in weeks, we allowed ourselves to breathe, to linger in each other's presence without the weight of fear pressing down. In the quiet aftermath, Alex held me close, whispering truths we had both needed to hear. "I don't want to hide anymore," he said. "Not from you, not from the world. I want us together openly." I looked into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability and courage mingled there, and I knew we were ready. "Then we do it," I said firmly. "We face it together. No more hiding." The following weeks were a testament to our resilience. We walked hand in hand through campus, public and unashamed, each glance from passers-by a small act of rebellion against the fear that had dominated Alex's life. Friends noticed the change in him, the warmth in his smile, the lightness in his step. And though danger lingered in the background, it no longer controlled us. One evening, under the same maple tree where our journey had begun, Alex took my hand and looked at me with an intensity that made my pulse race. "Ethan," he said, voice low, trembling slightly. "I've spent so long running from my past, from danger, from people, but I'm done running. Because I want you, all of you, and I want a life with you, no matter the shadows that come." Tears welled in my eyes, a mixture of relief, love, and awe. "Alex, I want that too. More than anything." He smiled then, genuine and unguarded, and leaned forward, capturing my lips in a kiss that was tender, fierce, and full of promise. The world around us blurred, the rustling leaves, the distant hum of campus life, the fading light of sunset all faded. There was only us, and the love that had weathered every storm. We spent the evening talking about the future, imagining a life where danger was no longer a constant shadow. We made plans to move off campus together, to create a home filled with books, music, and laughter. For the first time, Alex spoke of dreams he had buried, of places he wanted to see, of moments he wanted to share with me. Weeks later, as we packed boxes in his new apartment, the finality of leaving the past behind settled over us. Each item carried memories, some painful, some joyful, but all leading us to this point. A beginning, unshackled from fear. "I can't believe we made it," I said, stacking books on a shelf. Alex looked at me, eyes shining. "We did, together, and nothing can take that away." We paused, hands brushing, eyes locking. The world felt impossibly vast yet intimate, a canvas for the life we would paint together. I realized then that love wasn't about perfection or absence of fear, it was about choosing each other. Every day, despite uncertainty, despite danger, despite scars. That night, we celebrated quietly in our new apartment. Music played softly, the city lights spilling through the windows. We danced, laughed, kissed, and simply existed in a world we had reclaimed. Together. Over the next months, our love only deepened. We learned to navigate life's challenges side by side, supporting each other through small crises, celebrating victories, and embracing ordinary joys. Alex's past remained a part of him, but it no longer dictated the rhythm of our lives. Instead, it became a testament to his strength and the resilience of our bond. One autumn evening, nearly a year after our first accidental meeting in the library, we returned to the campus where it all began. The maple tree stood proudly, leaves fluttering in the breeze, a silent witness to our journey. Alex took my hand, pulling me close. "Do you remember this tree?" he asked, voice soft. I smiled, nodding. How could I forget? So many moments. Beginnings, fears, confessions. He leaned in, forehead resting against mine. And now look at us, stronger, together, unafraid. Tears blurred my vision, but they were tears of joy, of love, of triumph. Yes, I whispered. Together. Always. We sat beneath the tree, hands entwined, hearts beating in unison. The campus bustled around us, oblivious to the quiet victory unfolding in its midst. And as the sun set, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, we realized that our love had survived everything. It had transcended fear, danger, and scars, blossoming into something enduring, beautiful, and profound. In that moment, I understood the truth we had discovered together, that the greatest journeys are not the ones without obstacles, but the ones where hearts brave the storm side by side. And as I leaned against Alex, feeling the warmth and strength radiating from him, I knew that no shadow, no past, no danger could ever dim the light of what we shared. Our story, once shadowed by mystery and peril, had become a testament to resilience, trust, and unwavering love. We had faced the darkness and emerged not only intact but triumphant. And in the quiet of that autumn evening, beneath the maple tree where it all began, we allowed ourselves to dream freely, to hope boldly, and to love without restraint. We were two souls, once burdened by fear and secrecy, now intertwined, fearless in the face of life's uncertainties. And as the stars emerged above us, I realized that this closeness, this intimacy, this shared life was the happiest, most precious beginning of all. For the first time, we were truly free. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.